let's finally get into the meat and potatoes of today's live stream. And that, of course, has to do with this notion floated online last night by the Movement for a People's Party official Twitter account. It says Jimmy Dore would be the most popular comedian to ever run for president. And by the way, that's actually false. Roseanne Barr ran for president in the mid 2000s. She's, just by every metric, was a more popular comedian. But anyway, regardless, it says Jimmy Dore would be the most popular comedian to ever run for president and the first candidate with his own show and 1 million subscribers. Hey, here's how a Jimmy Dore campaign and presidency could revolutionize this country. Hashtag Dore24. And they wrote this article called Jimmy Dore is considering a run for the president. He could win, which they attach. But yeah, this is, not entirely unexpected. We've seen some rumors about this going around, people saying that, Movement for a People's Party is kind of trying to pivot into a draft Dore movement. You guys might remember they started out being draft Bernie for a People's Party back in the day. Then they became the People's Party, but they haven't run any candidates. They haven't achieved any ballot access, and they're not even technically a political party, with their filing. So what are they now considering pivoting into? Draft Dore. Instead of having to run any actual candidates or do any of the hard work organizing on the ground electorally, they're basically just going to try to get Jimmy Dore to run. Let's try to address this objectively, putting our beef aside, putting any sort of, issues we have with commentators aside. Jimmy Dore obviously does have some strengths as a potential presidential candidate for a third party. Obviously, he has a very devoted following, just to put it lightly. Jimmy Dore's fans really love Jimmy Dore, and they will defend him from just about any criticism that is thrown his way, no matter how valid. I'm sure you guys are aware of that if you've ever hung out in our comment section. Motherfuckers come out of the woodwork to defend their man.
Who does that sound like?
10 out of 10 times. Exactly. It sounds like Trump. And obviously not to make a direct one-to-one comparison, but Jimmy and his following, there are some Trumpian characteristics there. Again, he has a very devoted base of people. And some people would describe this as kind of even cult-like, much like Trump. Again, not to make it a direct one-to-one comparison, but there are some obvious analogies to be made here. Again, just like Trump, Jimmy also is very vindictive. He demands absolute loyalty from the people surrounding him. He doesn't tolerate even a little bit of pushback. He doesn't associate himself or surround himself with people that disagree with him or that push back on him or that call him out at all. He excises those people, again, demands absolute loyalty from his surrounding crew. So there's another thing that could potentially, work in his favor, because what really is a political campaign? It's a ruthless quest for power, and to be successful in that, you have to, have those instincts. That's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of just good-natured people with their heart in the right place running for political office, at least at that level, or at least succeeding. Because again, you have to be ruthless, you have to be kind of narcissistic, and let's be honest, Jimmy Dore definitely embodies those traits. Also, what Jimmy Dore would have working in his favor is the fact that the Democrats and Republicans are potentially both about to nominate, absolutely miserable options that would be impalatable to the majority of the populace. Obviously, on one hand, the Democrats look poised to renominate Joe Biden. We'll see if that actually happens, but that's the plan. The press secretary just confirmed that once again the other day, that Biden does in fact plan to run again. And on the Republican side, it doesn't look much better. I think if Trump decides to run for the Republican nomination, I think Trump will win the Republican nomination. So we very well could be looking at a rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. That's not a very good choice, if you ask me. And I think most Americans would be just completely checked out by the prospect of a Biden-Trump rematch. Again, literally the worst possible candidates that either side could put up. Now, that's not to say for sure that's going to happen. It's obviously possible that Trump either doesn't run, or he does run but gets defeated by someone like DeSantis. So then the Republicans would at least have a more dynamic candidate than Donald Trump, someone with a little bit less baggage. And obviously, there's still a chance that on the Democrat side, Biden will step down, resign because of health issues or old age, and then it would trigger a primary. And, guys like Bernie Sanders have talked about the fact that they might get back involved in that event. So again, it's not for sure that it's going to be a Biden-Trump rematch, but at least a 50% chance that that's where we're headed. So again, much like in 2016, that would present pretty fertile ground for a third party candidate, a third party movement, a third party uprising, a real challenge to the duopoly. Because again, in the absence of exciting, dynamic, populist candidates, that would, at least create the conditions necessary for a successful third party run. So with all that being said, that's what I think Jimmy Dore has going for him if he in fact decides to get in this. But there's one big problem, guys. There's one big problem, and that's the fact that he seemingly would be engaging in this campaign with the People's Party. And as we all know, as anyone who's been paying attention knows, the People's Party is fake. It's a illegitimate third party. It is not a real political party. They haven't run a single candidate. They don't have ballot access in any states. All the donation money that has been sent to them is completely unaccounted for, and there is nothing to show for any of that donation money. So again, if there was a more legitimate third party, even the Green Party, I think if Jimmy Dore actually ran in the Green Party primary and won, then that might actually be something to get semi excited about if you're a third party person and if you care about the policy agenda of a guy like Jimmy Dore, who admittedly I still do agree with the guy on certain policies. Other issues I hardcore disagree, but still, putting that aside, that might be something to at least start getting excited about, because again, the Green Party actually has the infrastructure to get on the ballot. It is on the ballot in over 40 states. People know about it, and it's not bagged down with all of these scandals and accusations and inter-party turmoil that has plagued the People's Party basically ever since its first convention over a year ago. Again, they have nothing to show for all of that money that has been donated, and only scandals and controversies in their wake. So,
yeah,
those are the problems with the People's Party. And again, I think if Jimmy Dore actually wanted to seriously run for a third party presidential bid, if he wanted to engage in that, then there's a lot of work to be done on the ground with MPP to get it to that point.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think makes this absolutely like an impossibility, and maybe even, a less I don't want to call it less serious of a run, but just like an even less successful run than what Howie Hawkins was able to mount. Because say what you will about Howie Hawkins and the fact that, it's not like he was the golden politician or anything, but at least he was on the ballot in a lot of states. Right. And if Jimmy Dore were to run as an independent, I don't think the guy, let's just compare it to a comparable sized YouTuber that's run for office, right? We have two great examples. One to give it some international fucking validity, and one right at home in California, right? Cenk Uygur. Now everybody's going to be like, Cenk doesn't have the following Jimmy did. He did, though. He did. And he had, more subs, and he was around for a very long time. And, say what you will about Jimmy, but he wouldn't have a fucking career if it wasn't for Cenk Uygur. I mean, that dude plucked him out of obscurity. Okay. So this guy he has a lot of clout. And when he ran for not president, for a House of Representatives, for United States Congress, he got absolutely fucking obliterated. This is a guy with his own super PAC. This is a guy with his own network. This is a guy with the infrastructure in the Orange County or wherever the fuck it was to actually knock on doors, to make things happen. Right now, you think about how miserably he failed. Mirrors how miserably Sargon of Akkad failed when he ran for office and somewhere in England or UK or whatever, right? It always happens like that. So then what actually does get somebody's presidential campaign off the ground? Because obviously, if you have eyes and ears, right? Jordan Cheriton, of all people, says this all the time, right? Like Jimmy Dore is somebody that, gets eyeballs on him, right? Like that is a dude that can get the attention of a crowd, right? He's got a large mouth, and motherfucker knows how to say shit to incite people's attention. Okay, so that gives him a benefit, right? But what is his massive detriment is that he has no machine behind him and no real ability to develop that machine. Unfortunately, I don't think. The People's Party not going to get anything off the ground. It's been, fucking years and years since they've started as Draft Bernie, and I think Gavin might be correct when they try and pivot into more of a Draft Jimmy Dore style of a party. Because if Jimmy runs, he'll absolutely run as an independent People's Party candidate, which again would just mean that he was an independent, kind of like we've seen in the past.
Because as you see here, the Majority Report account tweeted this out. It begins, but Sam Seder actually himself weighed into this. Here, I'm going to pull up what he tweeted, because I actually thought, for one, this is very funny, but it's also interesting and something that I didn't even think of immediately. Sam says, rumors are folks are planning a draft Seder campaign for the People's Party presidential nomination, because they don't want this nomination to be just handed to an anointed multimillionaire who made his money on vaccine skepticism. I have no comment at this time. So again, obviously Sam's joking here. I don't really think there's a draft Seder campaign for the People's Party nomination. I don't actually think that Sam Seder has any interest in running for the People's Party nomination. But what it does raise, what the point that is being made here that actually is pretty interesting is that, in their statement, the People's Party, they didn't say anything about a primary. They didn't say anything about a nominating process. They didn't say anything about a democratic nominating process, to say the least. They're just saying, like, it looks like Jimmy Dore wants to run with us, and we want him to run with us. Isn't this exactly what you guys accused the Green Party of doing by getting behind Howie Hawkins before there was an actual primary in 2020? Like, isn't that exactly what these people, accuse the Green Party of doing? Is it the fact they got behind a candidate before there was an official nominating process? They put their thumbs on the scale, so to speak. Obviously, the DNC did this as well with Hillary Clinton in 2016. Before there was ever a primary, they were making it explicitly obvious who they wanted their nominee to be. So here we have the People's Party completely ignoring any concept of a democratic nominating process or a primary, and just jumping the gun right to draft Dore. We want Jimmy Dore. And Sam is saying what if someone challenged him for the nomination? Is there not going to be a primary? Are the People's Party members not going to be able to vote on who their nominee is? Are you just going to anoint Jimmy Dore? I thought you were the People's Party.
It's that tanky leftist.
Yeah, exactly. So again, despite the fact that he's obviously joking here, it does raise a good point, which is like, what about the fucking primary, bro? I thought you were supposed to be like the democratic antidote to the anti-democratic nature of the two-party duopoly. What you're engaging here by just, anointing Jimmy Dore your nominee before anyone has cast a single vote is exactly the same thing you criticize other political parties and other third parties for doing.
Obviously, they're planning on just giving it to Jimmy Dore. Who the fuck else would want to run for this that has the platform that he has, right? He's their best shot. They're going to go for it. Not a great look for a party called the People's Party to not hold the primary at all, especially after they were they used to talk about how they were like a horizontal leadership structure. They used to talk about how they were going to have a convention to vote on their entire platform, and that no item was officially on the People's Party platform unless it had been voted on by the people, and this was going to be the most highly democratic party, unlike the undemocratic Democrats and all that kind of stuff, right? It just falls a little flat for me, right? And to be fair, this is one of the reasons that I would the Green Party, obviously, they have problems, right? They did at least have a primary, right? You got to at least give them that. Now, sure, did they get behind Howie Hawkins as a move? Sure, they did do that. Just like the Democrats got behind Biden, right? That's no good. But you guys are supposed to be running to be the antidote to that. And that doesn't seem like what's going on here, just to put it mildly.
Also, I'm sure you guys know, but Sam's been trying to get a debate with Jimmy Dore for years now, literally years. Maybe this would actually trigger that if they're running against each other in a primary for a political nomination, then Jimmy would have to debate Sam. Sam's going to do this whole elaborate fucking scheme just to get that debate with Jimmy. Honestly, that's the only way he ever would. And even then, I still doubt it. But yeah, I did think this was pretty funny. Again, pointing out the fact that, the People's Party is just trying to anoint Jimmy Dore, their nominee, without any sort of a primary, completely bypassing the concept of democracy or populism, which they claim to care so much about, and just instantly falling into the same trappings that they constantly criticize, not only the Democratic Party, but also the Green Party for. So again, regardless of how you feel about Jimmy, regardless of how you feel about Sam, I think that's just like reality. You can't really argue with that. They are just trying to anoint Jimmy Dore as their nominee, completely bypassing democracy, completely disregarding any sort of a nominating process. All they care about is drafting Dore. So, there you have it. That is what it is. And I would love to see Sam get involved too. That would be fucking hysterical if he actually tried to run for this nomination.
Yep, 100%. Would be fucking funny, and we would comment on it naturally.